win this! Oh my God! I can do it. I can't see. Oh, I'm winning. I see the finish line. This is the one where I win.
Oh, this ain't so bad.
Ah, man, those were the good old days. Back when I first got into Beast Wars, and I barely had any money to my name, and somehow Transformers were way more affordable than now. So why do I have so many?
I don't know.
But that was pretty fun. I missed out on the original, but I got the 2006 repaint, which fixed up on all the paint issues and really tuckered down and made that mold the best Rhinox that ever existed. Okay, no it didn't. But this one might. We're going to be taking a look at Rhinox versus Predacon Scorponok. I guess because Headmasters. Beast Wars versus? So this is basically... Is it premium finish, or is it a continuation of when Takara, during the Prime Wars era, or probably even longer than that, where they just made the same toy, but like objectively better in every aspect, except for when they didn't. And that's all well and good, but I do have one question with this. Why does this say 02? I thought the first set was Optimus Primal versus Megatron, then the second one was Cheetor versus Waspinator. I mean, both of these were considered the second in command back when they only had 5 crew members each, so... whatever, I guess it makes sense. I will say this box does a fantastic job at making this feel very premium. I guess I just answered my own question, or Hasbro did, whichever one. Because this definitely looks like the kind of boxes that they would send a masterpiece in. So, yeah, anything that reminds me of my first masterpiece, already a big thumbs up for me. If we get everything out, we get images of the beasts that look nothing like the toys, and the robot modes where this looks even less accurate than the beast mode. But this is all just a sleeve. You take it off, and what do you know? Another box. What is this, a DVD cover? A Blu-ray cover? And once you open that, Rhinox versus... Oh, he fell out. Does anyone watch Tearzu? I know, fucking Family Guy. Holy crap, Lois, this YouTuber view reminds me of the time that insert YouTuber here. I know, that's my thing. But in his R blank OP series, there's only been 2 animals that have ever been considered low tier. The Rhino and the Scorpion. And not only that, but these are also considered the 2 worst Kingdom molds when it comes to the Beast Wars characters. I'm pretty sure Trax is more hated than this guy. And if not, I'm afraid for my life. But this guy in particular seems pretty controversial. And I get why. I don't necessarily agree with all of the criticisms, but I always felt it was very unfinished. But who knows, maybe this will breed new life into this mold, and it can finally be the ultimate Rhinox figure. Probably not lose the masterpiece, but hey, you know what? The best mainline one that's aimed at children? We'll see. Let's take a closer look and get these guys out of the package. See you right now. That was easy. And here we have these beautiful figures out in the open. Like I said, this is a very interesting pairing, but it does make sense, though I do believe in the pilot, they tried to make Scorponok Dinobot's rival for some reason. Didn't he fight like Pterosaur or something? But it is very interesting to see these animals, realistic animals, might I add, in show-accurate colors. It's a little uncanny. But let's take a look at both of them individually, and we'll start, I guess... We'll start with Scorponok. I was going to say let's start with Rhinox, but I feel like he's the big centerpiece of this review, so we'll start smaller.
He did almost get me.
So, I mean, this is basically the same mold as the Kingdom one, but with slightly different colors. The only drastic difference is this head. It's now blue, like the show, but, I mean, when paired with the seam line, it does look a little bit jarring and cut off pretty abruptly, so I don't think that works particularly well. I already thought the original was nicely colored, I remember Black Arachnia was kind of disappointing because she had black legs when it came to the spider legs, and not gold. And I was like, okay, it's probably because they want to do realistic versions of the animals. But then Scorponok came out and he was purple and red. And I gotta be honest, while this does look nice, I think that one does look a little better. So, I mean, the gray is a lot more muted and less bluish gray. The purple, I think the purple's actually the exact same. The red is more of a raspberry, and again, he's got the blue head. Doesn't really mesh well, and nearly as well compared to the original, which I will bring out in just a second. But I do want to say one thing, and I feel like this is probably one of my favorite beast modes in the Kingdom line. I always liked scorpions. I thought they were incredibly neat creatures. And while this one doesn't portray the campiness of the show model, it doesn't really need to. It looks threatening, it looks awesome, it looks really good. Though, there is some definite valid criticisms you could give to this. Like, for instance, his shoulders, for starters, they're facing inwards instead of sticking out like how Scorponok's Scorpion mode usually looks. I mean, this is about as accurate as you're going to get to that. And that does, I don't know, for what this guy's trying to do, well, number one, it does look better like this. But number two, it also exposes another problem, and that is the visible parts. Yeah, I feel like the head probably could have done better. I don't really mind what they did with the feet, and I'll talk about why in just a second, but it does mean that, unfortunately, while it is nicely filled out, it doesn't have that much articulation unless you remove everything, but then it looks like shit. You only just get the joint right here and right here, but, you know, past that, this is still a really nice-looking Scorpion mode, and I was very satisfied when I first got this. It does look very, very special. I guess it is a good time to talk about the rest of the articulation. He's got these ball joints, which some people have criticized. I guess that's fair. They do feel a little bit on the cheap side. Not really too cheap, but a little cheap. He's also got a joint here, here, a swivel here, a bend here, and then he's got clicky claws. That's always fun. I guess you could probably also move the head. No. So I guess that kind of sums up the alt mode. Is it perfect? No. But it still does look pretty cool, even though I do kind of prefer the old one, which I do have on hand. Here he is. Yeah, I feel like the less amount of colors used does make each individual one pop a lot better. And like I said, the red does look way better on this one compared to this one. And like I said, the head not being painted a different color, not as accurate, but it does look way nicer. Like this, you see that, and it's like, okay, no, that's Scorponok. Obviously, it looks like a scorpion, but also Scorponok's colors. You know, purple, red, gray. That's Scorponok, man. Whereas this, it's like, I guess that's also Scorponok, but it feels a bit forced. You know what I'm saying? So, I do ultimately prefer this one in comparison to this one, at least in Scorpion mode.
And I'll kill the next motherfucker who comes in here!
Now let's get on to Rhinox. I know a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings on this figure, and most of them are negative, but can we all agree that this at least has a fantastic Rhino mode? That doesn't automatically make the Transformer good because, well, that's still missing 2 out of the 3 toys in a Transformer. But, hey, the Rhino mode is excellent. It's nice and proportioned well. Maybe not for Rhinox's Rhino mode, but, you know, this does look like a very nice wild Rhino. They also painted in the eyes. Makes them look a little wiser. But I think the definite highlight on this one, I mean, other than the brown color they used, they actually painted this in. Every single time they've released this Rhinox mold, he always has these ugly hinges here. Even on like the third-party upscale, it was there. And also he had a different colored tail. But here, it's all basically the same color, and it looks great. I mean, he does have a little bit of green there, but I think we can easily forgive that. Man, just look at that color. The glossy, shiny browns and greens. That looks straight out of the cartoon. Fantastic. And underneath, very clean as well. I mean, you do have a little bit of visible head syndrome, a little bit of visible chest syndrome. That's not a real thing, you idiot. But, I mean, it's so full. No hollowness anywhere. It just looks so nice. And the texturing is also very, very good. Very strong. It is a little weird because the top is completely smooth and it does feel a little out of place. But, you know, overall, Yeah, I don't care what anyone says, this is a fantastic Rhino mode. In terms of articulation, it's not much, but it's pretty effective. He has an up and down on the head, no side to side, unfortunate, but he does have an opening jaw, and he only has the bottom row of teeth. That is accurate to rhinos, so good job there. But do be careful, make sure you're not scraping on the back of this mohawk. You don't want to chip any paint, especially on a premium finish, where that's the entire point of the purchase. The shoulders do have a little bit of movement, and they can go out a decent amount. Again, you don't want to move this too far to where it's rubbing up against the hinge, because I think this is probably the last thing you want to chip, because, I mean, come on. It's not every day you get a Rhinox figure that came from Kingdom that has colored-in shoulder hinges. He does have a bend here, and it's also on a swivel. Cool. And finally, he has a ball joint in the back of the leg, so you can get forward and back and inward. So, nice. While this articulation isn't much, it is good enough for him to get into the iconic yoga pose, which, come on man, you have to admit, that's awesome. And let's go ahead and compare him to the original Kingdom release. Now, I do have to apologize. Mine's in pretty bad shape. It's got a lot of loose hinges, but more importantly, it's starting to yellow. This is kind of an unfortunate problem with Kingdom. Seems Earthrise wasn't the only victim to the coronavirus. Can you say coronavirus without getting demonetized? Oh wait, no, I don't give a shit. Anyways, yeah, even ignoring all the yellowing, this is just so much nicer. Not only does the brown look more in character, I mean, the gray does look fine, but these greens are just so ugly in more ways than one. We'll talk about the big one later, but I mean, even for now, even if those greens did look nice, they just look distracting. Not a bad alt mode, and I do kind of like the red evil eyes, because rhinos are kind of assholes. Well, no, they're not. They're just blind and attack everything, because they're basically my dog. You fucking blind motherfucker! But, I mean, as good of an alt mode as this is, this new one just slaughters it, as it should. $30 figure, well, at this point, $20, let's be real, versus, I don't know, like 40? Definite improvement. So like I said, even if you hate this mold, can we at least all agree that the Rhino mode is fantastic? Arguably the best Rhino mode that Rhinox has ever had. And the added on paint applications definitely aid in that title very, very much. I won't be showing this guy off with the other Maximals because this is the only premium finish I have and I want to make it a fair comparison. Actually, let me change that. I'm lazy, so I don't feel like getting them out. Sorry. But anyways, both of these alt modes do look good. This guy looks less good than the original, but the original looked so striking and fantastic anyways, so it's not really that much of a problem, especially considering the fact that it is a pretty accurate upgrade. Well, upgrade in quotation marks. But yeah, they both look fantastic. But the premium finish isn't here to make the alt modes look better, though that definitely is a goal. The main prioritization is the robot mode. So with figures as controversial as these, do they actually improve drastically, or are they still bad figures? We're going to start with Scorponok because while his engineering isn't perfect, Rhinox I have a lot to talk about when it comes to his transformation. We're going to do him a little differently. So we'll start off easy with Scorponok. Unfortunately, on my copy of just this guy, not on any of the other Scorponok molds I have, just this version, plugging this in is especially annoying, but I'm pretty sure I got it. There's a good chance this might be a mold degradation thing, but if no one else is having this issue, then it's probably just I got very unlucky, which doesn't ruin the figure for me, but like, still kind of annoying. The easiest way is just to make sure that these pegs actually go into here. So push it backwards, inwards here, and upwards instead of just brute forcing it. That might make things a little better. I think I got it. There you go, that wasn't so bad. You're supposed to wrap these legs around the body, but I don't know, I think that looks really stupid, so I'll just have them sprawled out. I think there is an issue with insect and arachnid transformers where they don't really know what to do with the legs, but I feel like having them sprawled out and make them look monstrous is easily the best way to go. Okay, so that wasn't too bad, but now we gotta talk about Rhinox. Is it fair to say that this is the most hated War for Cybertron toy? Even more than RC, because during the days of War for Cybertron, it was definitely RC, but like nowadays, I hear way more shit being slung at this guy than RC, and I'd say a good 60% of that is the transformation, because so many people have a lot of issues. And yeah, I get it. There definitely are clearance issues with it. And it is one of those where you have to do it in a very specific way. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So, because I'm used to transforming it, and I do actually kind of like the transformation. I do like how complex it is. I'm going to try my best to make you understand how to do it. So, if you do like the figure, but you can't really understand the transformation, maybe this will help. The nice thing about this guy is he's made out of slightly flexible plastic. It's not that hard. So that means, despite the clearance issues, there's a very low chance of you actually breaking it. So that's fairly nice. First thing you're gonna want to do is open this up. Push this down, and this will allow you to open this up. Second thing, open up the ass and get these guns out of here. Look how nicely spread out that is. See, these have folded inwards, so they'll get out of the way. And that's definitely going to help with getting these, because this actually is the hardest part of the transformation by a long shot. Just transforming one of the legs, there's not that much clearance, but with the fact that these are pushed inwards and you can open the legs up a little wider, it should help. So first up, you're going to fold this down, and you're going to twist... Oh, make sure this plugs in, actually. There you go. And you're going to want to twist this, but not all the way. Just about halfway like that. Halfway. Then you're going to want to, at the same time, while you're pulling this out, fold it downwards. Like that. There you go. The clearance is all clear. And you are safe to resume normal transformation. I recommend working on this first, so this is already folded away. This will fold up, spin it around. I think it folds, yeah, it folds better this way. Okay, or spins better this way, not fold. Okay, there you go. That's all nice and good. And then you're gonna want to fold this upwards to get it out of place, or pull it that way. So, yeah, now it's not plugged in anymore. Swivel it down, and bring this in. Plug this. There you go. One leg is done, and normally I skip repeat on the other side, but might as well do it now since it is a different experience. So, remember, only fold this out a little bit. I think at this point, you actually, yeah, since you have the clearance now, you can do this first. So, this will go in like that. Pull this up and rotate this around, and slide this in. It should be important to note that this has to be folded out in a certain way. Like if it does this, there's a little peg there that'll restrict you from slotting this in. So make sure this is flat as far as it'll go before you slide in the foot. Then you're gonna pull this leg out, get this out of the way, there you go. If there's clearance issues, just try and pulling it up. There is a lot of wiggle room, just enough to get everything to work. So pop this, wiggle it out, and rotate that around, slide this in, and plug that into place. There you go. The legs are finished, and that was easily the hardest part of the transformation. But there's still a couple of other clearance issues, so we'll still go and do this step by step. So you're gonna want to pull this outwards, and make sure this head is as back as far as you can get it before folding these out, so there is zero clearance issues. These should be in the correct shape, and make sure that this waist is perfectly straight and parallel to this chest so that you can pull it out with very little rubbing, and open up the chest, plug this back into place, and this time it actually plugs in fairly satisfyingly. Rotate the head around, and if you're one of those people who wants to flip this down, such as myself, you can do that. Make sure, again, the head is pointing up as high as it can go, and there should be enough clearance to fold it around. Make sure it's pushed all the way so that it's touching this section. So when you bring this down, there's nothing rubbing together. There you go. Take the wrist around, open this up. And this is kind of difficult. Make sure that you're holding this upwards as you're flipping it out. There's a little bit of a clearance issue, but it's not that bad. It's a little obnoxious, but it's not difficult. It's not aggravating. It's not frustrating. So it's relatively minor. Just do the same on the other side. And there you go. We're not going to unplug this because we're now going to transform this back. So we're going to start with the arms. And fold this in. Like that. And that open like that. Honestly, closing this back up is, because the thumb's in the way, is actually the biggest clearance issue when it comes to this section right here. So, I don't know, kind of lift it, like pull it outwards. Again, this is flexible plastic. You're not going to break anything unless you're too forceful, and it will slide over. There you go. Unfortunately, there are a couple of swirls. Ooh, that would be really bad if this guy has GPS. Let's hope and pray that he doesn't. Hasbro says that they solved this issue, but they also said they solved the yellowing like a couple years ago, and then they released G-Axis in that one Dinobot toy, which proved that they didn't, so fingers crossed. Pretty straightforward right here. You're gonna lift this up, and again, hold this out as far as it'll go while you flip this around. No clearance issues at all. Rotate the head. Open this up again. This has to be parallel to this crotch piece. That up. That goes like that. And I guess you can fold this down. Yeah. I also do love how this finishes the silhouette of his body by folding it upwards. That's pretty cool. Rotate these down like that. And again, keeping this head as high as it'll go. This should go in pretty smoothly. There you go. Okay, so next let's get to the feet. Let's take this one step at a time. I do believe getting it from Rhino to Bot is harder than Bot to Rhino, but still sometimes a bit inconsistent because you do have to do it the right way, and it's kind of hard to remember, so even I can sometimes struggle. Hopefully I won't do it here. So you're just going to open this up. And this is very important. This is very important. Okay, first off, of course, this needs to be pushed down. When you're bending this, bend this joint. Do not bend this one, because if you bend it, you're not going to have any clearance to fold this out. You're going to want to bend it right there. So it folds out, no problem. That is very, very important. So activate the pivot, pull it down, and make sure it clicks into place so everything will line up properly when you're done. Clicks into place. And while you're trying to mess with this, make sure that these don't get into places that makes them obnoxious to move back into place. Just keep this clean. Okay, so then you're gonna fold this tail out like that. This will fold down, rotate it around, there you go. And like I said, keep this clean. Make sure it's lined up properly. You're gonna wanna fold this while pulling this up and make sure this tabs into place. Rotate this in, and there you go. One leg's done. Let's do the other. So again, open this up, bend the second joint. This wants to bend more, so I understand if you're having issues because this automatically bends and not this one. So just make sure. Oh, make sure that one bends. There you go. There you go. Rotate this foot in. Make sure it clicks into place. There you go. And this folds around, puts in place. That opens up, spin it around. I don't know, there's an issue. I didn't keep this clean, but, you know. Just, as long as this doesn't go under here, it shouldn't be that bad. So, get that in place. And just rotate this around. And there you go. Make sure that's all plugged in. Oh. Okay. There you go. And before you plug everything in, make sure that this slots into here. Just make sure that there's peg holes here. There's 2 pegs here. Just make sure you plug one in. Again, this is fairly flexible, so it's the clearance issues aren't really that much of an issue, especially on this one. So make sure that's plugged in. And then you're going to make sure that this plugs into this one, so it's lined up properly. And with all that into place, oh, doesn't want to do it. Come on. I mean, as long as it's in here, it's not going anywhere, so just make sure it's lined up properly. Come on. Maybe it's because I have it rotated wrong. That's a strong option, or a strong possibility. There you go. Now it's lined up. Give this tail a squeeze. What? Okay. Okay. See? Lined up properly. Symmetrical as hell. Close it up. Plug this into place. And there you go. Not too much trouble. There's a couple of bits, but just make sure it doesn't spiral out of control. And honestly, once you know the transformation, smooth sailing. Now I gotta transform this guy back. Okay. So, transformation. What are our thoughts? Scorponok is... I think of the 3, his transformation is easily the weakest aspect of the toy. It's not terrible, and I will give you this. Scorponok is one of those characters who is very easy to get right because the first toy was already so accurate in terms of its engineering and robot mode and even alt mode that there's very little thought that needs to go into engineering a new one. So the fact that they tried something new with the legs, I'll give them that. It's admirable. It doesn't really work as well as the Primal figure we took a look at last review, the Studio Series one, but don't hate it. Just not the strongest transformation. This guy, on the other hand, listen, I understand why a lot of people don't like the transformation. If you don't know what you're doing, it is very, very, very frustrating. And even if you do know what you're doing, I can definitely see someone taking a look at a proper instruction video, understanding how it transforms and going, oh, okay, so it's not that frustrating. However, it's still not a figure you can pick up and transform, so despite it not being frustrating anymore, its complexity is still not exactly a great feature, and the transformation is still not a good one. And I can understand that perspective 100%. Even if you finally understand the transformation, but you still think it's bad because it's too convoluted, you have to do everything in a specific order, and you hate that, perfectly understandable. However, I never found it very frustrating. And while I do love transformations where it's complex, but you can do it in pretty much any order you want, which not only adds freedom, but also makes it very what's the Transformers term for replayable? Like this guy, you can transform the legs and this cab in completely whichever order you want, and it is very fun. You can either do this first and then this second, you do this first and this second, or you can do them in sort of a combination of the two, like what the instructions tell you to do. So, I understand that, but it's not a requirement for an enjoyable transformation for me, so I actually quite like it. And I will say one thing, if you are still struggling even after following my video on how to transform it, there's probably a good reason for that, and that is skill issue. I'm just joking. Though the reason is I just transformed the other one because, you know, comparisons and all. And I realized that the plastic, it's a lot harder. This one's a lot more flexible and feels higher quality, which is strange. So not only does it feel nicer, they somehow improve the engineering by making it way more forgiving and less punishing on mistakes. So I think that's a considerable upgrade when it comes to this guy, more than just the paint applications and the updated colors. The transformation's also way nicer, so big thumbs up for me. So when it comes to the engineering, I actually quite like this one. This one, Okay, with all that being said, let's move on to the robot modes. These are the most upgraded parts when it comes to these premium finished figures. We'll start with Scorponok. Gotta say it, man. I was not that impressed with the upgrades on the Scorpion mode, but this does look a lot nicer. I always thought the molding itself did look very, very Scorpion-like. I was like, holy shit, new Scorponok toy. That is awesome. Compare it to this one. This still looks pretty good. I think the colors do look striking and nice, but man, this is Scorponok. Down to a T or an S. That just looks so nice. That head sculpt is so on point. The texturing also works incredible. The way the legs work, that's different from this section of the legs and the body. It's all very nice, and it looks great. It does. It definitely does. I thought this would be like a throwaway, like, yeah, okay, I like the original Scorponok toy, don't really need this one. And for the most part, that's still largely true, but I was not ready for how much better this robot mode truly is. He also does have his missiles, obviously, in one claw, and he's got the Cyber Bee in the other. And that does look a lot nicer than this old one. The old one still looked pretty nice, but, you know, in comparison, this one does definitely look a little unfinished because it's lacking on some paint. But, you know, this new one does look way better. So, yeah. Very nice upgrade. The one thing I don't really like, he's got his logo on his chest, but it doesn't really line up properly because there's a giant seam line down the middle. Normally not that noticeable in my opinion, but when you put something as detailed as a faction logo right in the center of that, that's when it starts to look noticeable. I mean, on here, I don't really care, but like here, it does look a little out of place and look a little ugly. Still kind of a shame that his scorpion stinger doesn't really look accurate. Like, Scorponok's actual stinger is all big and meaty and nasty and detailed and spiny, whereas that's just... His legs look more like a stinger than his actual stinger, so that's kind of annoying. And also, there's a bit of a gap on the back. But I think, all things considering, this is a very nice-looking Scorponok. Now, some people have criticized that this figure sucks because he's way too tiny. And I kind of understand where some people are, because the scaling when it comes to Beast Wars is weird. Like, it took me a couple of watches for me to realize that Pterosaur is basically the size of Inferno, but only sometimes. Sometimes Scorponok is fucking tiny as hell. But on average, he's just like one of the shorter Predacons. And I get it. He had a really big original toy, but much like Primal, there's a reason they downscaled it. Because they wanted it to be accurate to the scale of the show. As inconsistent as it can be sometimes, surprisingly so. It's a 3D show, not a 2D one. So, I mean, I don't really mind it. However, the proportions are a little off. He kind of has this bulkier upper body and these lanky legs, but here they do look a little stubby, which can throw you off. That's fair. You can extend the waist. I'm not going to do it on here. I'm going to do it on this one. So you just unplug that. Pop this out. Close that back up. And try to get this back in as well as you can. And that does update the silhouette to make it look a little better. I mean, he's still got stumpy legs, but his body does look longer, so that definitely does help. So if he doesn't transform right, hey, you know what? Actually, that does look pretty good. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. Oh, yeah. That's looking a lot better somehow. I don't know why. Sometimes it does look a little weird, but now it looks great. It does make him look a lot bulkier. So it is technically a problem, but you don't need to buy any upgrades. It's a problem that is incredibly easy to mitigate. So, yeah, not bad. It doesn't even really fall out of place that easily. So, yeah, it's a win-win. In terms of articulation, he's got the ball joint. Ooh, this one's a lot nicer. It's a lot smoother. And it does move up and down a little bit. Not really left to right. Shoulders rotate all the way around, and they can go... don't want to do that. Can get these... His back is a little bit of a mess, so don't do that. They can go out a pretty decent amount. He's got the bicep swivel and a fairly decent elbow bend. He's got wrist articulation, I guess, and then you can, of course, open the claws in two places, and they're very satisfying to close. Nice click. Waist articulation, that's actually, I think, a little better once you untransform it. And you get a little bit of a pseudo ab crunch. Neat. If you're one of those guys who gets these for posing, that's important. I mean, it is a little floppy, but like I said, if you just get this for posing, that's not really going to be much of an issue. His hips go forward that far, back that far, and out that far. He's got a thigh swivel, a nice elbow.
You're a dumb fuck! A dumb fuck!
Holy crap, that's a really good bend. Nice. And, well, you can bend the toe, but that's mostly just for transformation because it's not on this one. He does have a pretty good ankle pivot. And working. Working in conjunction with both his hips and his ankles, this is the widest stance you can get with both feet flat on the floor.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Oh, and I also forgot to mention he's got a joint for the tail here, 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 and a ball joint here, so you can get a decent striking pose. Doesn't even hit his head. Nice. So posability is surprisingly actually pretty great, especially the legs. And when you get that waist working, it can do you wonders. So, overall, how is this new Scorponok? Well, I thought the original release was pretty good. I feel like it is definitely overhated, though I can see why some people don't like it. I'm just not one of those people. I think the robot mode looks nice. The transformation, it's a little weak, but I appreciate that they tried something new with a character so stagnant in terms of engineering. And his beast mode, well, it's not that accurate to the character, does look pretty cool. And these new paint applications, they definitely do make him look a lot more premium and accurate to the character. Though I will say, the old one doesn't really look bad. It does look a little cheap, but in a fun way, you know? That looks cool. But this does look a lot better, I'm not going to lie. I do prefer how the Scorpion looks on the original, but, I mean, the new one technically is better, even if it is kind of a weird execution. So, take that for what you will. Overall, you're probably not going to buy this 2-pack for this guy, but, you know, all things considering, this is still the second best Scorponok toy ever made, officially. Why not the first? It's because the original toy is just so goddamn good. I'm sorry, dude. You're great, but it's going to be very hard for you to live up to that guy. But, you know, that toy is a classic. It hasn't aged a day. There's no shame in being second place.
What's wrong?
About to explode.
Now for the big one. This is the main reason I got this. The Rhinox. What can I say? I don't want to do the comparison right now, but I just have to. I have to. I, along with many people, was very disappointed when I saw this guy. And, I mean, like, you can see it, right? This figure wasn't terrible, but it did have two major issues that makes the presentation, which is important, awful. The color scheme and that head sculpt. The head sculpt, we'll first talk about this. It's not terrible. It's not anywhere near as good as the rest of the Kingdom head sculpts for some reason. But, I mean, up close, it does look good, but, I mean, not only is it inaccurate, but when it's farther away, because of how bad the colors are and how vibrant the green is, a lot of the sculpting just is hard to notice. And a lot of the times, it looks like he's, especially from the front, it looks like he's doing the fucking pucker face. And these colors, holy shit, dude. What the fuck were they thinking? Poop brown gray, alongside the ugliest lime green you can possibly think of. And don't just think I'm hating on the color green. Green is my favorite color. But of all the greens you could have gone with, this is the one. This is it. This looks like a prototype. This does not look like an officially finished and released product. It is not a bad toy, but a terrible release. Like, wow. So, I mean, I get why some people hate this figure. I do. I get it. Listen, I get it. Engineering is kind of annoying. A big pain in the ass if you don't know what you're doing. The color scheme and the paint applications, it's nice in some places, like this chest and the gold does look nice, but it is not doing this dude any favors, and that head sculpt is atrocious. And the overall look, which the colors plays an important role in, and the head sculpt are like the two things that people notice first when it comes to a Transformer. So, yeah, it took me a really long time to warm up to this guy. But now I don't need to. Fuck this guy, because this premium finish version, oh my god, everything is so much nicer. Not only did I mention the engineering is a lot better because of the plastic quality being a lot more flexible, but still feeling high quality, but also the paint applications and the overall color choices so much better. Maybe the brown isn't this shiny, but it's an old 3D model. You can never make it too shiny. But this marble green, it's not quite as good as the Generations one. That was the perfect green, but it does make this guy look like an old 3D model. And I say that in the best way possible. It just makes this guy look like, if this was the Rhinox that was released back in the day, it was shown off, I'd be like, well, that head sculpt looks a little weird, and we will talk about that in just a second, but that is nice. Because the thing is, once you get past the terrible color scheme and the weird-looking head sculpt, the actual bot itself is really good. Now, some people have pointed out that it looks awkward, it looks stupid, it looks weird, and I think I know why a lot of people think the Generations one looks more accurate. It's because that one's not more accurate. It's not. It's not. It's not even a contest. But it does look a lot more appealing. It's a good redesign of Rhinox, but Rhinox is fucking weird. Even me, a guy who has basically memorized that 3D model on the show, saw the masterpiece and is weirded out by a lot of the choices. Like, he's got, like, no waist, like, at all. There's something off about that. But then I went back and watched the show. No, that's just accurate. Rhinox is a weird-looking motherfucker. But the main important things is he's got a wide, long body with giant green shoulders and a giant chest. This is an excellent example of fake parts being used. I mean, you're never going to get that out of this jaw. And honestly, not even bothering and making the jaw look as good as it can in beast mode, robot mode be damned, because you're doing something else, makes both look so much better. See, this is why I don't mind faux parts, because when used effectively, it's definitely the way to go sometimes. He's also got smaller shoulders, which, yeah, he does have a bulky look, but again, it's because of the chest. The shoulders were surprisingly small, but hey, if you want him to have larger shoulders, you can use the butterfly joint, and when you spread them out, definitely bulkens him up and makes him look a lot cooler. So, you know, options. That's nice. The only thing that's more inaccurate in comparison to the Generations figure is his legs. They're a lot bulkier than they should be, but honestly, I'd rather all the bulk be placed here than here. I know that sounds weird, but like, that would make all of his body just rhino parts instead of the green or the chest, which, yeah, that just doesn't quite work. Or down here. So, I think it was a worthy sacrifice. He's got the incorrect amount of toes. That's a little weird. Does that ruin the toy? Not really, but I do kind of appreciate that they tried to give it like a pseudo lab coat, which is very difficult. I don't know how the masterpiece is going to do that, but he's got the details on his thighs, which work well when it comes to being parts of the actual rhino. And then this just kind of hangs off. It gives the illusion quite well. Now, some people have mentioned that he is a flat boy, and he is a flat boy, but I don't really mind. He's got all these extra parts on the front. He's got these wide arms. I mean, on the Z-axis, they're wide. And then he's got this giant rhino head on his back. So I don't think it's really that much of an issue. Yeah, overall, when it comes to the actual look of the robot mode itself, it's the best Rhinox, in my opinion. The best mainstream Rhinox. Let's take a close look at that head sculpt, because they did improve upon it, but it's still not perfect. So, I mean, they really did try. They added back in the Maximal logos. That's really cool. And with these fixed colors, it does look a lot better, and you can definitely see the lip. But, I mean, his head still doesn't look flattened. His eyes are wrong. The details on his eyebrows, on his mohawk, and his chin, they're all wrong in ways that were easily avoidable. I mean, shit. Every other Kingdom figure, even the Legacy ones, they all have fantastic head sculpts, but this guy just doesn't. It still annoys me. I kind of wish they changed the head sculpt. I know that's a little bit too much out of the budget, but like, that would have made this nearly the perfect Generations Rhinox. Oh well. So, I mean, head sculpt aside, it still looks cool, just not that accurate. But that aside, this is, I think, the best robot mode that Rhinox has ever had on an official mainline Transformer. So, I mean, it's not saying much. How many figures were there? The original, which sucked. The Generations, which was fine for the time. And then this one. So, a good job, I guess. Now let's get on to articulation, because despite the fact that he's Rhinox, he's kind of a weirdo when it comes to his looks, he's quite the poser. He's got the ball joint, obviously. His head looks up a decent amount. Is there any side to side? Yeah, an okay amount, not really. He's got shoulders that rotate around, and they go out that far. Again, don't push it all the way. You might chip something, but that's as far as it goes. Decent articulation, but it does look a little ugly, I'm not gonna lie. Oops. But I mean, considering how he transforms, not really the end of the world. He does have a butterfly joint, which is really cool. Not only if you want to bulken out his arms, but, I mean, that's still an incredibly useful joint to have. Even if, you know, it's hard to get his arms in the correct spot, but hey, it's neat. He's got a bend in the elbow. It's fine. He's got, of course, the bicep swivel. No wrist, but he does have a decent waist, though it does get cut off because of this chest and these legs. But because his legs are on the side of his waist, that means they do get a lot more range going forward and back, but because of the upper body, it's not as much as you would expect with that design philosophy. But hey, he does have a decent thigh swivel. It's just... oh wait, no, it's down here. It's kind of hard to access, but it's there. He has the aforementioned double-jointed knee, which, when not annoying you when trying to transform him, is nice. But I will say, I think you can get about as much range with only accessing one, but I guess the combination between the two is slightly better, so cool. Ankles, they can go back and forward, so you can get a little bit of a stepping pose. That's kind of nice. The stepping! And he also has the pivot. And when working in conjunction with the hips and the ankles, and let's be honest, maybe a couple of other joints, this is the widest stance he can get possible with both feet flat on the floor.
Very good.
So, articulation overall is pretty effective, and for Rhinox, incredible. He does have a couple of problems when it comes to clearance and panels, but it's not that bad, and overall, he's pretty great at posing, so that's good. Unfortunately, we gotta end on a down note, because we do have to bring back in his weapons. They do plug in a lot nicer than the original, so that's nice. And they do look a little better than the original. The colors are a lot more accurate, and there is more paint applications. I remember people were like, yeah, these look stupid, but at least they're painted well. Well, these ones are painted even better, and now these do look much worse in comparison. So, yeah, I mean, still doesn't beat the Generations chain gun, or I'm going to be honest, even the original one, and that one wasn't even a chain gun, but hey, you know what? All things considered, doesn't look too bad, and comparing the two, yeah, I mean, wow. So, in conclusion, is this guy good? Is he bad? I think the best comparison to Kingdom Rhinox is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. At its core, it's an enjoyable experience. There are a couple of hiccups, like the overworld being a little on the bland side, and the transformation being a little annoying if you don't know what you're doing. But overall, the product itself isn't that bad. But the state it was released in, with the head sculpt and the abysmal colors, it just makes it look unfinished and kind of embarrassing. But this new premium finish feels like if Scarlet and Violet finally got properly patched, and even a visual upgrade, it just fixes a good 85% of the major flaws that this guy had, and just, it's finally a worthy Rhinox to add to your collection, a mainstream one. It still does have its issues. If you don't like the engineering, well, not much is going to save you there. The chain guns are still a little weak, and the head sculpt does look nice, but not nearly as accurate as it should. But I gotta admit, this is the prime example of what great paint applications can do. I mean, shit! Instead of having these stupid yellow rectangles on here, they gave them the actual show-accurate stripes. Need I say more? This is, in my opinion, one of the best widespread releases, although, I mean, you have to get this from Takara, but still, non-masterpiece, non-third-party related, one of the best Rhinoxes that you can buy. And this guy and Airazor, I think, are the two definitive premium finish figures to get. If you have to get only two sets, I do think this one and that are the most important. Especially if you were disappointed in that Rhinox because you were expecting a little more. This one, you might be surprised. Now I'm thinking about it, I guess to really show off the comparison and progress that the premium finish has, let's go ahead and rank these guys, because I'm not going to talk about these figures ever again. So, here you are. So, that was the premium finish 2? I'm going to go 3. Rhinox versus Scorponok. I can understand if some people are not interested in this at all because you don't like either of these two molds, but I think they're good, not perfect, but good representations of these characters. And in my opinion, this Rhinox is essential for having a Kingdom collection of Beast Wars guys. So it's kind of interesting because I both don't recommend it and recommend it at the same time. If you absolutely hate these molds, probably don't get it. But if you like them, but wish they could be a little better, especially the Rhinox, definitely get it. I think it's a must get. I mean, you know, the Optimus Primal and the Megatron, those ones are nice, but like, the original releases are already so good, you don't need it, but this is a much needed improvement. So that's going to be my final video review, Transformers review of the year. Talking about my boy Rhinox. And hopefully you learned something new on the transformation process and can appreciate the figure more than you could. If so, I've done my job. And that's going to be about it. Has this been my 100th video? Yeah!